Most engines go up and down. Mazda's went round and round, like your uncle explaining cryptocurrency. Welcome to the Auto Chatter's story of the Rotary engine in America. Fast, fragile, and fantastically funky. Join me for a brief look through history of these vehicles that lack cylinders in their engines. As always, facts, opinion, and speculation will be given. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, and let's begin.
Rotor ring, what's your price for flight?
In 1970, Mazda introduced the R100. With just 100 horses from a Rotary that sounded like a chainsaw on Red Bull, America was intrigued, confused, and slightly concerned. Rotary engines were viewed as the next big thing, and just about every major car maker was working on powering their own with one around this time in the future. Small in displacement and size, but managed impressive power. Just what a car market starting to embrace smaller vehicles needed. The engine was a 1-liter Rotary, with rated at 100 horsepower, which wasn't bad. Drivetrain, rear-wheel drive, 4-speed manual. The price started around $2,495, about $19,000 today. It was a lightweight coupe based on the Mazda Familia. U.S. sales that year was about 5,000 units. Meanwhile, the Beatles break up and Mazda joins the scene with its own spin. Literally. By 1971, the RX-2 followed with more space and the same triangle power. Then came the RX-3, available as a coupe, sedan, and, believe it or not, a wagon. America, meet the first Rotary grocery getter. The RX-2 was introduced in 1971 with a 12A Rotary. This is a 1.1 liter rated at 110 ponies, 4-speed manual or 3-speed automatic. RX-3 came out in 73. It was shorter and lighter than the RX-2 and had the same 12A Rotary. There was a RX-3 SP later featuring sportier trim and an upgraded suspension. U.S. sales was about 15,000 annually through 73 for the RX-2 and about 54,000 RX-3s in 1973 alone. The first 70s oil crisis hits. Perfect timing for an engine designed that sips gas like it's a Mountain Dew chugging contest. All the other major car makers that had thoughts of using Doritos instead of cylinders start to abandon the idea. Many, like GM, couldn't get it to work right anyway. American Motors didn't like hearing that news, as its upcoming Pacer was to be powered by a GM Rotary that instead became vaporware, or whatever people called that in the early 70s. By 74, Mazda got bold. A Rotary pickup. Yep. Sometimes called a Repu for short. Mazda did hedge their bets and offered piston-powered trucks too. The Cosmo RX-5, it was like a Japanese Lincoln Continental with less torque and more triangles. The RX-4 was a mid-size coupe, sedan, wagon with a 13B Rotary and a more upscale interior. The Repu pickup had a 13B Rotary as well, 5-speed manual, larger brakes and suspension than the regular Mazda B series. The Cosmo RX-5 was a large luxury coupe, 13B Rotary, had a distinctive long hood and fastback rear. RX-4 sales peaked at around 36,000 for 74. The Cosmos about 10,000 total. The Repu pickups, about 15,000 of those from 74 to 1977. During these cars' reign, Star Wars hits. The Repu truck does not make the Kessel Run in under 12 parsecs, though. 1979, the Rotary goes mainstream, and only sold as a sports car here versus pretty much every other type of vehicle Mazda had sold here before. The all-new RX-7 was sleek, affordable, and handled like it was on rails. It was the perfect car for anyone who wanted a Porsche, but didn't have doctor or lawyer money kept laying around. Engine was a 12A Rotary, rated at 100 horsepower, 5-speed manual or 3-speed automatic. Price started at $7,279 or around $31,900 today. Quite the bargain, as a Datsun 280ZX or Toyota Supra started around $10K then. It was light, around 2,300 pounds, and had near 50-50 weight distribution. Trim levels for this generation was S, GS, GSL and GSL SE. The GSL SE became available for '84. That one had a fuel-injected 13B rated at 135 ponies, 1.3 liter, four-wheel disc brakes, and a limited slip differential. U.S. sales were pretty good for Mazda. 79 was about 37,500, 80, 33,700, 81 was close to 30,000, 84 jumped up to about almost 35,000. Total U.S. sales for this gen was almost 378,000. MTV launched a few years after the RX-7, and it becomes the unofficial car of synth solos. For the all-new '86 RX-7, Mazda takes heavy inspiration from a Porsche 944 looks-wise, and has a turbo as an option. The FC RX-7 had more tech, more power, and enough boost to make your mullet stand up on its own. Base engine was the 1.3-liter 13B, like the GSL SE had before, now at 146 horsepower. The Turbo 2 models had 182. Base price in '86 was around $12,000, which is around $35,000 today. The car had a fully independent suspension with optional auto-adjusting shocks. Convertibles came out later, starting for the '88 model year. The trims were base, GTU, SE, GXL, Turbo 2, and convertible, and for '90 only, the GTU. U.S. sales in total was about 270,000 for this generation. Miami Vice was heating up TV sets, and all that's missing from the RX-7 is a white blazer and fingerless gloves. For '93, the final boss of Rotary cars was the RX-7 FD. Twin turbo, rear drive, and sleek enough to make Ferraris blush if you could keep the apex seals intact for more than a weekend. It was a beautiful car, and Mazda's contribution to the high-performance era of Japanese sports cars in the '90s, before Japan's economy took a dive that had lasting effects even over a decade later. It was light and nimble at a time Supras, 300ZXs, and 3000 GTs were looking more like sumo wrestlers in comparison. Unfortunately for the FD-RX-7, reliability was a problem, and by the time people figured out how to iron most of it out, the cars were long gone new from our shores. Engine was a 13B REW, which had twin sequential turbos and was rated at 255 horsepower. Weight, 2,800 pounds. Sticker price in '93 was around $32,500, or about $72,000 in 2025. Suspension double wishbone, and it had near perfect weight distribution. Trim levels were base, touring, R1, and R2. U.S. sales were kind of weak. '93 was about 14,000 units. '94 only 3,000. '95 500. Total, we're talking 17,000 cars or so. In '93 too, Jurassic Park releases, and so does your coolant lines for your RX-7 if you're not lucky. After '96, silence. Mazda pulled the plug on the Rotary in the U.S., the FD disappeared, and fans mourned it by pouring two-stroke oil on the pavement. RX-7s continue in Japan with multiple JDM trims such as the Type RZ, Spirit R, and others. Rotary research and development focused on emissions compliance and efficiency continues, though. The Matrix movie arrives, and Mazda's Rotary is still stuck in limbo. For '94, the RX-8 was Mazda's comeback tour. It had 4 doors, a 9,000 RPM redline, and just enough reliability to make you optimistic, and then just enough issues to humble you. This reboot, like most others in history, had problems. It was an interesting car if you could get past the styling, I found odd due to the rear half door situation, and Mazda's obsession with Dorito symbols all over the car, inside and out. The price was right, and car reviewers couldn't get enough of it. It handled fantastic, and some said it was better than a Nissan 350Z, which was more of a brute. But the Renesis rotary engine had problems, and you may have been better off doing an LS swap when and if it blew. Which doesn't really make it an RX anymore, does it? Power was a 1.3 Renesis rotary, rated at 212 horses with the auto and 232 with the manual. Transmission was a 6-speed or 4-speed automatic. LSD was standard on these Sport and GTs. Unique freestyle rear doors had allowed for better rear seat access. There was an R3 package later in 2009 through 2011 with Bilstein shocks, Recaro seats, and an aero kit. Curb weight was around 3,042 pounds with a manual. Sales, 2004, almost 24,000. 2005, close to 21. 2006, only about 18. By 2011, though, the final year, they only sold about 1,100 of them. Total U.S. sales was about 75,000. America gets introduced to the Incredibles around the same time as the RX for 2004. At least the price was right, as a base 2004 model now started around $25,000, which is about $41,000 today. That's quite a bit less than the previous gen RX-7. Today, RX-8s can be cheap to buy. Just beware what you might be getting yourself into. In 2012, with the RX-8 discontinued, fans were holding candlelight vigils, and the forums were in mourning. The Rotary fades again, engineers retreat to their bunkers, enthusiasts keep the flames alive with rebuild kits, compression tests, and prayer. An RX Vision concept was teasing a Rotary hybrid possibility at the 2015 Tokyo Motor Show. There was also a Skyactiv R concept exploring cleaner Rotary tech. Now fast forwarding to 2023, the Rotary returns to charge a battery. The MX-30 REV uses a Rotary engine as a range extender, not to drive the wheels, but to hum in the background like a very confused blender. This has a 830cc single rotor engine that acts solely as a generator. It's an EV-only platform with a 100-mile electric range plus 300 miles extended. There is no US release confirmed as of this year, but it's currently available in Europe and Japan. Everything now is retro, even Mazda's triangles. Case in point, with Stranger Things debuting, which was still less strange than a Rotary being used as a generator. The Mazda Rotary engine is a chaotic, beautiful, Dorito-powered legend. It didn't always work, but when it did, oh baby. Here's to the Wankel, forever spinning in our hearts and occasionally in our driveways. I hope you enjoyed this one, and leave a like and comment if so to let me know. Anyway, until next time, I'll be keeping the headlights on for you, and chatter out.